I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
I see dead people.
Hasta la vista, baby.
You can't handle the truth!
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Back with another episode, Real Profs Classics. And we're doing Return of the Jedi, kind of the end of our series within the Star Wars films. And it's came out in 1983. Beals and I, you remember going to see it in the theaters? I remember seeing it at the Northridge Mall. They had a theater, and I remember sitting there. Back when it wasn't stadium, it was just the slanted aisles.
Yeah.
With the uncomfortable seats.
Uncomfortable seats.
Yeah.
Sticky floors.
Sticky floors.
That was the best.
Yeah, I saw it in New Jersey, and my aunt took me to go see that movie. And then we went and saw Superman 3 right after that. And so it was a double header for me as a little kid. And I was like, this is the greatest day of my life.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, like Star Wars, we've talked about it. It's huge, right, in our lives. And all the action figures and the different spaceships and the AT-ATs and all those things.
And the Christmas special.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That was only surpassed by The Acolyte as the worst Star Wars.
I was going to say, I would watch the Christmas special over and over again.
That's what I'm saying. It's been surpassed by The Acolyte as now the worst of.
Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about how, again, going with our usual standard questions. The reason we do the same questions over and over again is to try and help and encourage you as a viewer to be able to have a series of questions that when you go into a film, you can think about it critically from a worldview perspective. So let's talk about the message. What is the message of Return of the Jedi, and how does the film's message of redemption, especially through Darth Vader's arc, kind of change the storyline?
He said it, redemption.
Yeah, he did. Redemption. All right, we're done.
Okay. Well, anyways, thanks for showing up. Quickest one we've ever done.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, it was redemption, right?
Redemption of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think even a little bit of Vader at the very end, right? Kind of this.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
Making sure.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same.
You just want to, it's
yeah, that.
We're on the same page.
You guys can have your side chats.
Yes.
That's fine. No problem. Yeah, that's okay.
Anyways, we'll get back to you in a moment.
Yeah. I'm just going to answer some emails.
Yeah, I think if you know the prequels, right, that helps you see it in a little bit different light than what we saw. And we knew his backstory a little bit, that he was once connected to Obi-Wan and a Jedi. And so Anakin really is redeemed at the end. He is now able, and you see that when the Force ghosts are at the end. And then interesting, with the updated version of Return of the Jedi, they took the old guy out,
right,
and they stuck the
which is weird
because none of the other guys are young,
right?
You don't have
so why you don't
Ewan
have
McGregor. McGregor is
young Yoda.
Yep, Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda. That's Grogu. Thank you.
Grogu.
You're the Star Wars guy. You should know the names.
That's true.
Tisk.
Yeah. So I think redemption is, you cannot not see it. It's so pervasive within the movie, and that brings a bunch of questions because the movie has led up to one conclusion. Once you start down the dark side, you cannot get away from the ultimate destruction of the dark side. Like that's the Yoda is persistent in that. I mean, it carries over from Empire Strikes Back, but this one is like, no, there's good in him. I can save him. I know it.
I can feel it.
Yeah, and so it's, and so there's a lot of things that attach to this redemption arc, Luke's compassion, and so I think that you do have some challenges within the world, because if he is totally lost to the dark side, how does he turn?
Yeah.
And so the only conclusion that you have is that there must be something good in Vader at the beginning, or that it develops in some way, and maybe that's through the relationship of his son, watching his son be.
But then wouldn't that
tortured?
run counter to their statement that once you start down this path, it's irreversible?
Yeah, and so, I mean, even the Jedi don't really know their own world.
Story, I mean, dude, that's like the hardest thing in terms of like when you're building out a story, is actually understanding the rules of your world and sticking to them. It's rare that it actually happens.
And it's par for the course, right? Because, again, the Force is ultimate destiny. and yet you have the choice to be able to. But there's the character arcs of the Emperor and Vader are totally different. There's nothing in the Emperor that is of redeeming value, none whatsoever, and he is summarily destroyed at the end. There's something in Vader that's different, and so they try to kind of harness that to show the redemption that there's. But yeah, I think that's one of the key themes throughout. And then truth. What is truth? Obi-Wan lied. He did. There's no way about it.
And then he tries to like put a caveat in. Well, from a different point of view.
Yeah, a certain point of view, right?
and obviously from a story perspective, we know that's because I don't think he actually had some of those thoughts originally. Yeah, and so had to put that kind of. But yes.
Yeah, they were handicapped at the very beginning from New Hope in how they could do some things, and they were creative in accomplishing that. But it does show you some truth is relative type of thinking because, when he says like from a certain point of view, Luke goes a certain point of view, right? Like he's
in a classic Mark Hamill acting response.
And so this is what Ben says, many of the truths that we cling to depend greatly on our point of view. That is quintessential Jedi thinking because, light is the only part, darkness, and yet the whole concept is a balance of the two. It's you have to have both. And I think that becomes a challenge from a Christian perspective because while it is true that there's good and evil in the world didn't start off that way. The world was started, all of universe, as Genesis 1 says, and it was good, right? God declared it good. Even more so, you have a theological challenge because, again, as you pointed out in the last episode, God is light, and in him there is no darkness, right? That whole concept of light and darkness that even comes out in Johannine literature. But the ultimate thing is that God has no evil whatsoever. He is pure, he is truth, he is right, he is all those things. And so from a biblical perspective, yes, there is good and evil because of the consequences of sin, but they're not equal in power. And that's the thing that I think the Star Wars saga
and it goes back to early 1900s, postmodern worldview of coming in that there's no absolute truth. It's how you perceive things. And when that's the case, it's open to everybody's interpretation.
Yeah. And you see it even in the horror movie genre, right? Where God needs
what
man.
What genre is this? I don't know.
Yeah, the one that we never do.
Okay, got it.
I'm a Christian. I don't see that.
That's right.
Well, we did once, Alien Romulus.
Oh, well, anyways.
And it's still up. You can go watch it. It's a great review. You'll love it.
But to go back to my point is that there is a sense that God needs the help of man to defeat Satan because they're equal in power. That same concept comes over into this world is that light and dark are equal in power. One is just quicker, easier, and more seductive and has negative traits about it. And so you see that in the battle of Luke. He's trying to figure out who he is. There's you wonder, is he going to turn? He shows up in black. He's aggressive. Even at the end, he's the one that attacks an unarmed man. That is not Jedi-like. You defend even the evil people that are unarmed, and he wants to kill the Emperor, and then he's fighting his
Strike
dad.
him down with all of his might.
Right? Yeah. And then the moment that Darth Vader mentions his sister, he just goes berserk and cuts off his hand and getting ready to decapitate him. And he looks at his hand. He looks at the hand of Darth Vader, because both of them have robotic hands. And he remembers the lesson in the cave that he failed, that he could easily become the next Darth Vader, right? And that's when he chooses to die instead of kill his dad. Yeah. And that's when his dad then starts to think through, like, what is he going to choose? Yeah. Is he going to choose to continue to serve this master that is just terrible, or is he going to, make
the son
move?
is used as an example to him. Let's talk about what's portrayed, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit. Maybe what's portrayed as good, what's portrayed as bad in this kind of end of this trilogy.
I think one of the things I saw was Luke, kind of continuing to pursue his dad for forgiveness, throughout the, that's one of the things that you see, and bring his father back from the darkness. I think that's something that's noble. I think that's something that's true of all kids about their parents who they see are on the bad side of life. They desire to see good for them. So I think that was one of the things that, if you're talking about the good and noble, that you saw, because throughout the rest of the film, I mean, we saw Luke and Leia and Han Solo, they continue to show sacrifice, hope when hope shouldn't be there, perseverance, bravery, those kind of things. So those continue to be throughout. But Luke, that one with Luke kind of was the difference that I saw in this one.
What about what's portrayed as evil?
The Emperor is the epitome of evil. He is basically arranging everything, manipulating everything in order to get to the point where he's at. I mean, he even says it at the showdown, right? That he allowed the information about the base and all of that just to get Luke to where he's at, to then want Luke to kill Vader, right? So he'll expose anybody and anything to get his end means. Yeah. And so
what do you think that says about the Emperor specifically, in that if he's willing to bring Luke there to kill Vader, does he not fear that this man is going to ultimately try and kill him?
No, I think he sees him as more powerful. He sees himself as more powerful, and the ability to kill Luke. And the only reason that he dies is because Vader one arm lifts him and tosses him into a reactor. Vader doesn't fight him.
Right.
He sacrifices himself with the electricity, short-circuiting all his equipment that's going to kill him, right? So I think what you see with the Emperor is the epitome of evil. There's no redeeming quality in him because he chooses to continue to be the evil guy that he wants to be. And then one of the things he says early on in that interaction between Luke and the Emperor is that Luke's compassion is going to be his undoing.
Right.
And yet it's Luke's compassion in not killing his father that is the undoing of the Emperor, right? So it is that reversal kind of concept that the Emperor lacks compassion, lacks any kind of desire to help another individual out. Everything is just a pawn for his means.
I think when you also look at the Emperor, when you see somebody who is so evil, right? They fall on that side completely. They tend to get blinded. He's like, of course, he kills Vader. I'll take over Luke. I've been able to manipulate Vader and control Vader up to this point. Why wouldn't I be able to do that with Luke? So they're kind of blinded by their own power, thinking that if I could do it to him, I can do it to his son as well.
Yeah, and the blurring of the line between good and evil is, I think, most prominent here, because you've seen the, New Hope, he's in white. Empire Strikes Back, he's in gray. Return of the Jedi, he's in black. He exhibits things that a Sith would exhibit, anger, attacking, all those things. And yet he chooses the light side. And so at the end, when he's talking with his father and he removes the helmet, if you got eagle eyes, you notice his little flap comes undone, and it's white on the inside. And so I think Lucas is trying to tell you, you didn't know where he was at, but this is where he was really at. He was gonna be good. But again, there's still a little evil in the good, the yin and the yang, even in Vader's character, or in Luke's character, that continues even into the sequels of this, where you're not quite sure what's going on with Luke and why is he all over the map, and then people have their opinions of The Last Jedi or whatever, and but I think that's trying to continue to show that he's a complex character and he's not all just good and perfect in the white. There's a blurring there. As
we kind of wrap things up on our Star Wars trilogy, Return of the Jedi here, just want to talk about the idea of redemption in this film. In my film history class, I have 5 different worldviews. One of them is I call it redemptive stories, and you see that a lot in animation. You see it a lot in these kind of big hero stories. So let's talk about kind of the redemptive aspects from a biblical worldview with this film?
Yeah, this film is purely pagan in that you can lift Christian themes and talk about it, but redemption is rooted in man. Redemption is rooted in what Vader does. It's in his action. It's he's the one that's going to save the day and therefore then become good in one act. All those hundreds and hundreds of acts that he has committed in one act, now he's good, he's on the light side of the Force, and he's a Force ghost. The biblical concept of redemption is that there is nothing in us that we can redeem whatsoever. There's no ability, we have no power whatsoever, that God put on flesh, dwelt among us, went to the cross, died, buried, rose again. He is our high priest. He can perfectly sympathize with us, yet without sin, right? All those concepts are about God and God doing what we could not and cannot. And I think that's the biblical grid. When we look at that and you say, yeah, redemption, that's a biblical theme. How are they portraying redemption? Right. Well, it's within paganism. It's within this New Age concept, Eastern mysticism, whereas the biblical concept of redemption is totally God-centered, God-empowered, God-accomplished, and we give him praise and glory for that. We don't look at ourselves and say, this is what I was able to accomplish. And this becomes personal for me because, I was saved at a late age, 20 years old, and when I go back home and I interact with family, they all say, well, look what you've done. You've picked yourself up from your bootstraps. You've accomplished something. Nobody thought you would do anything. Nobody thought, we just thought you were going to be some big loser, and look at you now, right? And it's like, no, it's not about me. I didn't do this. From an ultimate perspective, it is the redemption empowered by God that he accomplished and continues to move me towards glorification one day, right? And I think that's the difference, is that, yeah, we can see a father's love for his son, a son's love for his father, sacrifice, redemption. Those are all great themes. But the way they're portrayed is not from a biblical perspective. But it does give you good opportunities to evaluate and kind of work through these worldviews and think through why they are driven to talk about these things, because these are real concepts. They're not just made up, but they have no truth attached to them. And so I think that's what you see from a Christian viewpoint.
Yeah, I think of Colossians 1:20, where it talks about, all things are reconciled through Christ, right? And throughout the film, throughout this whole series, the reconciliation has to happen through man, and that's where they're looking for the balance of good and evil. But the reality is there is no, the biblical worldview is there is no balance without Christ, because it's all through him. But that's not what's presented in here. But like you said, there's so many good things that you see there. Hope, right? Again, redemption. You see all of these things, even perseverance through trials. You could pull all of that from there, but that is not the worldview. They're not coming from our worldview when they present those things.
Yeah, they're kernels of truth that they're teasing out, and which resonate with us, and which is why I think some podcasts jump on that and try to cram it and say
over-spiritualize it.
Yeah, like these are Christian values, and they're concepts. I wouldn't say they're Christian values. They're concepts that align to what we would hold as true because they cohere to what the world around us is, right? There's a coherence that they understand that corresponds to reality. They know about sin. They know about what's good. They know about a need for redemption. They know these things. The way they explain them is without God. The whole Star Wars universe is a godless universe. Even the Force is not a god. It's an energy. It drives, but then it can be thwarted by your choice. And I think when you get an atheistic worldview explained by all kinds of mysticism and New Age and this, that, and the other, you're going to touch on those themes, but you're gonna ultimately come to a wrong conclusion about how redemption can be accomplished. And I think, again, we look at it and we say, well, this is the truth. Right. This is how God has accomplished salvation. and how he's going to restore all things that were lost in the garden.
Well, that's it for this classic series in Star Wars. We'll be doing more classic films in the coming weeks, so we hope you continue to enjoy it. And follow along, subscribe, do all that stuff. We appreciate all of you followers out there. Click on the button.
Like, follow, subscribe. Sorry, I didn't script it for him.
That's right.
So.
He didn't. That's what happens.
May the Force be with you.
Thank you for listening to Real Profs, a production of the Center for Thinking Biblically. To support this ministry, please visit thinkbiblically.org/donate. To learn more about the Masters University on-campus and online undergraduate and graduate programs, visit masters.edu.